Howdy, y'all. It's a C. Here's to hear news, part two of the history of American money. Love you. Pray for you always. Like and subscribe. On with the show.
Many business transactions are financed as this. Let's say you're a merchant and you order a carload of goods from the manufacturer. In some instances, you buy on open account. You don't pay in advance. He ships them to you and bills you. And as a general rule, payment within 30 days is regarded as cash and gets a 2% discount. And if you don't pay within 30 days, you pay the full amount, and if you take 60 or 90 days or more, why, you begin paying him a little interest on it. But maybe he wants his money quicker than that. So, you send your signed promissory note or contract to the manufacturer for the amount of your purchase. And if he endorses it, so he guarantees the payment of it, he can take it to the bank and sell it to the bank. Now, the bank usually doesn't give him full value on it. Your note for $1,000, perhaps the bank gives him 85–90%. He's willing to take a discount in order to get his money right now. He's made up for that by raising the price to you a little. And the bank is getting interest on $1,000 when the bank only has an $850 or $900 investment in it. The bank is willing. They're not taking chances just on your solvency. They've got the manufacturer's signature on it too, guaranteeing the payment. Now that paper is called a trade acceptance, and the banks get a lot of them. So the Federal Reserve law provided that if the Federal Reserve Bank used U.S. government bonds as security, they got back Federal Reserve notes equal to 100 cents on the dollar. If they used trade acceptances, you would get Federal Reserve notes equal to not more than 90 cents on the dollar. So maybe these things got paid off, maybe they didn't, but in the meantime, the Federal Reserve Bank was getting back its money, which they were putting out again, 10 times over, at interest, and all the time drawing interest from the federal government on the bonds that didn't actually cost them anything but $1.25 per thousand bills.
Wow.
Now look what a complete control over your entire economic life the Federal Reserve Bank has. In the first place, they can bring your local bank business grinding to a halt anytime they want it. Remember reading a little while back in the papers that they thought we were getting a little too prosperous and it was time to slow down the economy. So the Federal Bank raised the rediscount rate. Now, I told you the local bank, to keep its money supply available, has to be able to cash in someplace a lot of these mortgages and so forth and notes that they have on hand. They take them to the Federal Reserve Bank, and the Federal Reserve Bank accepts them and gives them back money for it, but it charges them this discount rate. And by raising the discount rate to the point where your bank cannot pay that and still be able to lend the money to you at a rate you can afford to pay, they in effect shut off the supply of money, without which the business of the community cannot be conducted. Of course, they can refuse absolutely, but they don't have to. They can do what they have done sometimes in the past, and that is just raise the discount rate to an impossible figure. In 1920, they decided to break the farmer. Farmers are an independent lot, you know. During World War I, the farmers were encouraged to raise as much wheat as possible and buy more land for that purpose. And the government kept telling them it was their patriotic duty to do it, and we'll see that money was made easy to borrow, to buy it with, and so on. So the farmer mortgaged the land he already had, plus the land he was going to buy, to raise the money to buy it. And he did it through his little local small-town bank. And these banks were not under the thumb of the Federal Reserve Bank. They were an independent local bank. And then, of course, during World War I, the factories had been so busy and the workmen drawing high pay that there was a lot of money put out into circulation. 2 times during its existence, the Federal Reserve Bank has allowed the supply of money to be expanded so the community could do business, World War I and World War II. Otherwise than that, they have shut the money supply down to the point where not money but credit was the only thing available to do business on, and that gave them that stranglehold on your windpipe against which you had no defense. So it was time to take back all this money that was out in circulation, time to drive the farmer off his land, and labor in the city was getting pretty independent. The unions were getting strong. Time to break them, too, by giving them the competition of all these farmers driven off the farm, desperate to get a job in the city at anything, any pay they could get for it. So they brought on the Depression of 1921 by simply shutting off the supply of money for agricultural operations and farm loans.
This is amazing.
Yes, it drove most of the small town banks out of business, broken off a lot of them, leaving the banking system of the country largely in the hands of this one sinister corporation, the Federal Reserve Bank system. But now let's go back a little bit earlier than this. You haven't heard the worst of it yet. I've been giving it to you gradually so you can stand the shock. Why did we have the Federal Reserve Bank system at all? You can go back and read the leading magazines from around 1900 on and find what I'm telling you now in it. Some people were worried about the possibility of the outbreak of a large-scale war in Europe because so many nations were maintaining big armies and navies, and there was bitter trade rivalry between Jew-dominated England and Germany. And they were afraid it was going to break out in war. But you found that all the leading economists said, can't. War is impossible because the nations of Europe can't finance a war. So, in order to get the Christians to killing each other and destroying each other's nations for the benefit of the Jews, and in order to pour billions of dollars into the coffers of the big Jew banking houses, it was necessary to bring about a war and to find a means of financing it. And the European branches of the House of Rothschild were capable of financing one side of that war, but not both sides. So they had to mobilize the financial resources of the United States to finance the other side. Otherwise, no war. They held off their war till they got the Federal Reserve System set up in this country in 1913. Then they could start their war in 1914. Now the big banking houses affiliated with the House of Rothschild, like J.P. Morgan and Company, King Logan Company, they bought enormous issues of British bonds. And they were able to get the money to buy them with, British and French, through the Federal Reserve System. But it began to look as though Britain and France would lose the war and be unable to pay off the big Jew banks on these bonds. And there was no way they could get the United States government to pay off French and British bonds except to get the United States into the war. Some of you are old enough to remember this. Woodrow Wilson ran for his second term upon the platform, "He kept us December 1916.
Huh.
And he had already pledged to get us into the war. That was his definite commitment to the Jew bankers who put up the money to elect him.
I see Ears to Hear News coming at you. Special American History of American Money. Love you. Pray for you always. Like and subscribe.
Remember Franklin D.
Share.
Roosevelt?
Share and subscribe.
I promise you, as I have said over and over, your sons will never be sent overseas to fight a foreign war. And he already had sold you out and made the commitment to get us into the war. Yeah. Characteristic of the Democrat Party. Well, they got us into the war. We financed the entire Allied side of the thing. And, of course, the big Jewish banking houses made a great many billions out of it. Out of the money of the Kuhn-Loeb Company, chiefly through Jacob Schiff, some $20 million were sent to Russia to finance the communist revolution there, as all of you know. But they found that they hadn't totally destroyed the Christian powers, and they had to have a Second World War to do that. So they got the Second World War, which almost finished it, and now they're getting ready for the Third World War to complete the job. So this is the octopus which has this stranglehold upon your financial system. You know, in 1913, the Federal Reserve System was started with $143 million. That's all the stockholders paid into it. And its assets today exceed $54 billion.
Huh.
Which all came directly or indirectly out of you poor suckers, the taxpayer. Now let's see where this has been bringing us. You know, God promised us we'd have prosperity if we obeyed His law.
Amen.
During the last 100 years, the federal tax rate per capita, I'm not talking about state taxes, county, city, anything but U.S. government taxes, but the average tax per person, and that includes the baby still in diapers, as well as those who are old enough to earn the money to pay taxes, the average federal tax per capita a year ago was $8.49 a year. Today it is $654.74 per person. For an average family of 5, that is $3,273.70 a year. And that's only federal taxes, remember. The average family of 5 does not have a $10,000 a year income. So they are paying substantially over 32% of their income, and there is no known instance in history where any nation survived long after taxes passed the 30% mark. And federal taxes alone are beyond that. And if you say my income tax isn't that high, the point is your income tax is only part of it. A large part of the federal tax system consists of excise taxes collected from the manufacturer, so they become a part of the price of the goods he sells. When you buy a loaf of bread, you are paying not only for the cost of the wheat and the labor to mill it and bake it and so on, but you are paying 14 different taxes that have been levied on that from the time it was growing on the farmer's land till the time you get it in the store. There's very little you can buy today that somewhere or other hasn't picked up some federal excise taxes on it. And that's what brings it up to this level. That you don't see them as taxes, and therefore you're not conscious of how much tax you're paying. You just say the cost of living is going up so much because look how much the merchant charges me. He does it because in order to buy the goods, to put them in shelves, he has to pay the cost of the goods plus all the accumulated excise taxes on the way down. Then on top of that, of course, you get your state and local sales tax. All of our own expenses, plus nearly all the expenses of the Allied side against Germany. The total public debt was $259 billion, $115 million. At the end of 1948, even under Harry Truman, we had reduced the debt down to $252 billion, $366 million. At the end of 1960, after the Korean War, it was up to $286 billion, $471 million. And at the end of 1967, our present law sets a debt limit for the United States, bonded debt, of $358 billion, but you remember they got through Congress some months ago approval of an additional $7 billion because they said we would be over the $358 billion mark before the end of the fiscal year. And the
So
government
Biden
was
said
going to
it.
have to stop paying bills unless they could get more money. By
Remember, this was
selling more government
up to 1967, I guess.
Remember now, the Federal Reserve Bank is not the only one who holds government bonds and gets interest on them. But the Federal Reserve System is the only one who can buy government bonds for nothing and get interest on them, in addition to getting the principal paid back to them too. Now let's look at the government budget, what the government pays out. In 1915, our budget was $746 million, and it included pretty heavy expenditures that Woodrow Wilson was having made, getting us rearmed, ready to get into World War I. Up to that time, we never had a $1 billion budget. $1 billion. In 1935, in the midst of the Roosevelt spending mania, our budget had risen to $6,497,000,000.
Yeah,
I left out the World War II years because you'd expect it to be high, paying all the expense practically of one side of the war. In 1940, our annual budget, now this is all government expenses for everything, was $9,055,000,000, and that included Roosevelt's feverish arming, getting ready to get into World War II. I'm impressing you with this figure. Less than $10 billion for the grand total of all government expenses, including building up an enormous Navy and Air Force.
This is just amazing stuff. At least I think so.
Because I want you to compare that with the fact that last year we paid $13.5 billion just for interest on the public debt alone, and the coming year's budget includes $14,152,000,000 just for interest alone.
Wow. I don't even know how big those numbers are.
President Johnson says our total budget for the year has to be $186 billion. Now does something begin to dawn on you? When we fought World War II to destroy Christian civilization in Europe, we didn't pull our punches. We didn't say anything about not wanting to win the war, just to get them to the bargaining table. We didn't have any pious platitudes about not bombing the enemy's factories because they were in cities where somebody lived. You know, the worst things that Hitler was ever accused of, and they were lies, weren't half as bad as what we did as a matter of government policy. We talked about unconditional surrender of Germany as our only policy. We deliberately bombed the residence areas of German cities where there wasn't a factory and there wasn't an anti-aircraft gun or anything else to make it a legitimate target. And in Hamburg and in Dresden, we turned the whole city into one sheet of flame, deliberately burning to death the civilian population of women and children.
Right, all men were.
And now we're too noble to bomb Hanoi lest perhaps someone of the commies get hurt in the process.
Must be during the Vietnam War.
We
Eyes to
kept
see,
the
ears to
Korean
hear
War
news.
going year after
Special
year
edition.
when we had the power
The
to
history
win
of
it.
American money. Love you.
Every general
Pray for you always.
in Korea, when
Share.
he came back, testified before Congress,
Please share.
he could have won it crushingly in a brief period, and he wasn't allowed. So, not just MacArthur, everyone else who had command in Korea gave the same testimony. Look at the war going on now in Vietnam. It's been going on for years, and we're feeding the best youth of the nation into the meat grinder. Our own government has officially declared that they see no prospect for ending this thing in less than 25 years. It isn't just your sons who are going to be murdered by the treachery and betrayal of your own government. It's your grandsons, and they won't even start a new war to do it. They'll be murdering them in the same old one in Korea. We could win this thing, so no communist would dare speak a word in opposition to it, and we could do it in 3 weeks with the weapons we have. Remember, through Johnson, through Dean Rusk, we have said it is not our policy to win the war in Korea, the Vietnamese, I should say. Through Mr. Goldberg, our ambassador to the UN, we said we don't want to win the war, we just want to bring them to the bargaining table. And for that, they are butchering your sons over there.
Amazing.
Forbidding them to win the war. And are you beginning to wonder now why the Koreans, after we have told them, we can win this for you in 3 weeks, but we're going to be here devastating your land with continuous warfare and having your sons killed along with ours for 25 years, the Vietnamese, I should say. Are you wondering why the South Vietnamese are beginning to say now we could get better terms than that from the commies?
Huh.
Now, why are they doing it? Let's go back to the Federal Reserve System again. We spent more money on the Korean War year for year than we did on World War II. We're spending more money year for year on the Vietnam fiasco than we did in World War II. And how we're managing to spend it without getting any results is one of the unexplained mysteries of the age. Because they don't have enough weapons and they don't have enough ammunition, and they've explained to us that because they don't have bombs enough to load the airplanes up with a full load, they have to send them out with only a quarter load, and therefore every pilot has to fly through that anti-aircraft fire 4 times in order to deliver one normal bomb load. They're having to strip Europe of the materials we had there supposedly for the defense of Europe. They pretty much stripped Europe of helicopters to send them to Vietnam because Mr. McNamara saw to it we didn't have enough. We ran out of bombs and we had to get a lot of them from Europe. You've heard of the troubles we've had. You've heard of our soldiers there writing back in desperation, asking their parents here to buy them a cleaning rod for the rifle and mail it to them because the government didn't have any to issue them.
Really?
Oh, yeah, that's Mr. McNamara's triumph. As Roosevelt used to say, we planned it that way. But somehow the money got spent. Nobody knows where the money went. And because we were spending so much more than taxation could provide, we had to keep issuing bonds and asking the Federal Reserve System to buy them, and then giving the Federal Reserve System the money to buy them with.
Unreal.
And we won't be selling so many bonds, or rather giving so many bonds to the Federal Reserve System anytime the war ends. Now, can you add 2 and 2 together and arrive at some number a little short of 11 as the proper total? This is what happens when you turn your back on God. The laws of God are natural laws as much so as the law of gravity, and they're every bit as self-enforcing. I told you this
Amen.
before, and I'm going to tell it to you again because I want to impress it on you. If you jump out of an 8-story window, you do not violate the law of gravity. You obey it. You come down.
Right.
You obey it the hard way, and you pay the penalty.
The hard way.
If you ride down in the elevator, you obey it the easy way, and you get the benefit. And every law of God is economic laws, like the dietary laws, and all these others are just as much natural laws as the law of gravity, and they enforce themselves with the same bitter penalty. The wages of sin are death. And your sons are dying over there in the mud in Vietnam because you here in this country allow the laws of God to be violated. Remember, he said that you obey his laws. 5 of you shall chase 100 of the enemy, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight.
Amen.
You win your wars crushingly with no loss to yourself. But remember, he also said, you are my battle axe and weapons of war. For with thee will I overthrow nations, and with thee will I destroy kingdoms. Which means you've got to do that job. You have a choice. Do it in obedience to God's law, and do it with little monetary cost and very little loss of life.
Amen.
Or do it violating God's law and pay the heavy, bitter penalty. But you've got to do it anyway. All right. We allowed these men, and you know what Jews want to do to Christian civilization. I don't have to give you an hour's sermon on that. You've surely learned that by now. We allowed these men to get this power over us. God told us in the first place never to let a Jew live in our land. And I'll say this for Hitler. He wasn't doing anything wrong at all. He was obeying the law of God when he started cleaning them out of Germany.
Okay.
Do you know why we got into World War II against Germany? It wasn't because of fictitious atrocities. Those were used as a propaganda justification afterwards. He didn't have any Jews in concentration camps till after the war was going. After the war was going, he rounded up these common Jew enemies and he put them in concentration camps. And if that's so terrible, what did we do to the Japanese here in California and a lot of the Germans
And Washington.
in the United States after we got in the war? We did the very same thing. But all during the time when the Jews were running around loose in Germany and they were getting out, and the Jews were trying to make up their mind whether they were going to later charge that Hitler killed 10 times as many Jews as there were in all Europe, or just 10 times as many Jews as there were in Germany. They were getting us into the war, and Roosevelt was pledged to them to enter it. And the only reason was that Hitler saw what the Jew economic system and banking system had done to Germany, and he was breaking their power. Now, Germany is a nation which, like England, does not raise within its own borders all the things that it needs in the way of raw materials. They have to import some raw materials, and to buy them, they have to export some of their finished products. That's the way Britain has been doing for a century and a half, and Germany was having to do it. So as a means of strangling
This is some crazy stuff.
destroying her economically, the Jews started a worldwide boycott of German exports.